let's take a look at how to multiply fractions by whole numbers. A large box of waffle cones contains 6 cones, and a small box of waffle cones contains 7/8 as many cones. How many waffle cones are in a small box? Simplify your answer and write it as a proper fraction or a mixed number. So essentially, we need to figure out what is 7/8 of 6. Right? What is that fraction of our whole number? And when we go to set this up, that means 7/8 of is a keyword that tells us to multiply. 7/8 of 6 means 7/8 times 6. Now, when I'm multiplying with fractions, since 7/8 is written as a fraction, it's helpful if I can turn 6 into a fraction as well. Remember, any whole number can be turned into a fraction simply by putting it over 1. So I'm multiplying 7/8 times 6 over 1. Now the rule when you're multiplying with fractions is that you multiply straight across the numerator, meaning the top of your fraction, and you multiply straight across the denominator, or the bottom of your fraction. And then, of course, you simplify your answer. So multiplying straight across the top, I have 7 times 6. That's going to give me 42. Multiplying straight across the bottom, 8 times 1 is going to give me 8. And notice they said write it as a proper fraction or a mixed number. Right now, 42 over 8 is an improper fraction, okay? An improper fraction. And what that means is that the top number is bigger than the bottom number, or in other words, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So if I want to turn that into a mixed number, one thing I can do is divide it and say 42 divided by 8. Now it does not come out evenly, but I know 8 goes into 40 5 times. So I know I'm going to get at least 5. And then I could say, okay, well, if 8 times 5 is 40, that leaves me 2 left over, right? The difference between 40 and 42 out of 8. Okay, and I can simplify this a little bit more. I'm going to leave that 5 the way it is, but 2 over 8, that I can simplify because 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I can write that as 5 1/4. Hannah writes enough to go through 4 lead pencils. How many pencils will she go through in 3/7 of the time? So another way we can write this question, if it's 3/7 of the time, then she's going to go through 3/7 of the amount of pencils. So we want to figure out what is 3/7 of 4. So I'm going to set this up, 3 over 7. Of is a keyword that is telling us to multiply. So I'm going to multiply that by 4. And I want to write 4 as a fraction. Any whole number, you just put it over 1. So 4 would be 4 over 1. And then from here, I'm going to multiply straight across the numerator, or the top, and straight across the denominator, or the bottom. So on the top, 3 times 4 gives me 12. And on the bottom, 7 times 1 is 7. Okay, so this is again an improper fraction, And they asked us to write it as a proper fraction or a mixed number. So let's turn this into a mixed number. So first, I would want to see how many times 7 goes into 12. And it doesn't quite go in twice because that would be 14. So 7 only goes into 12 one time. Okay, so 7 times 1 is only 7. So to figure out the numerator, I would say, okay, well, what's the difference between 12 and 7, right? So since it only went in there once, 12 minus 7, that's going to leave me with 5 left out of the 7. So it's the same as 1 and 5/7. During a week, Madison writes enough to go through 8 lead pencils. How many pencils will she go through in 5/7 of the time? Okay, well, if she's so she must write a lot. Maybe she's a really great math student. Let's say 5/7 of 8, because she's only going to go through 5/7 of the total amount if she's only writing for 5/7 of the time. So just like before, I'm going to set this up as a multiplication problem. 5 over 7 of is a keyword that's telling us to multiply, and I want to write 8 as a fraction. 8 is the same thing as 8 over 1. I multiply straight across the top, and I multiply straight across the bottom. Okay, in the numerator, 5 times 8 gives me 40. And in the denominator, 7 times 1 gives me 7. Okay, now again, we have an improper fraction, and we want to write it as a mixed number. So the first step is to think, how many times will 7 go into 40? Well, it doesn't quite go in 6 times because that would be 42. It does go in 5 times, right? And 7 times 5 would give us 35. So that accounts for 35 out of my numerator or top, which means there's another 5 left over out of 7.
Sorry, can you repeat?